Okay, so tonight we start chapter Perek Daled, Yechida Shabbatara. So we've been talking about the fact that Mashiach is the Yechida. So even though Mashiach is going to return Beis David to what it was, and we're going to do the mitzvahs again, we just concluded and saw that because Mashiach comes from Yechida and is going to reveal the Yechida of all of us and our connection to Hashem in a much higher way, therefore even the mitzvahs that we're going to fulfill when Mashiach comes will be on a much higher level. They'll be done in the way that Hashem really wants, which means much more fully than we could have done before. So now, following on from this concept that Mashiach is Yechida, we now go into the Torah of Mashiach, which is called the Yechida of Torah. Again, connecting to the same point again. So Torah Chassidus, we say, is Torah Shel Mashiach. So when we talk about that, it's just a straight continuation of what we've been talking about before. So b'prakim ha'kaidmin dubar are those inyane ha'primi shel Mashiach Yechida ha'klalis. So we've been talking about in the previous chapters this concept that the real union of Mashiach is that he is Yechida Klalis. Hamagala say Yechida Chol Echad Yisrael, and thereby reveals that Yechida within each one of us, of the Jewish people. Well, maybe as Shleimus Hamitis became a mitzvahs, Yechida Shabbat mitzvahs, and that's how he brings us to the true complete way of fulfilling the mitzvahs, the Yechida in the mitzvahs, the way Hashem really wants it. So now that we understand Mashiach himself, how Mashiach himself reveals that Yechida within us, how that changes the way we're going to be able to keep mitzvahs, we're now ready to go on to the Torah of Mashiach, which is also called the Yechida of Torah. So on this pasuk of Torah B'Ititete, Chazal say, Asid Kadosh Baruch Hu liyot yoshev v'darish Torah Chadasha shu asid litain aydei Mashiach. So the Torah B'Ititete in the future tense, Chazal say this is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the future is going to be darish a new Torah Chadasha, that will be given by Mashiach. Rashi b'Perusha l'shir shir and b'yeres a pasuk yashkeni m'shiras pihu shekaya al zman ha'asid she'az HaKadosh Baruch Hu yigal Yisrael stoi ta'meha or mistar tzfunoseha. So Rashi explains on this pasuk in Shir Shir when it says yashkeni m'shiras pihu, Hashem will allow us to drink from us the kiss of his mouth. That this is really talking about the future. Rashi says, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to reveal to us the secrets and the depth of what is really hidden in Torah. We've seen this in the words of the Rambam himself. He says, in times of Mashiach, Bnei Yisrael will be great, wise people, and they will know the things that are hidden. So the Rebbe explains, Shatara Chadasha, Shebedivrei Chazal, the Soi Tameh Shabloshim Rashi, Hakavanahi Lichida Shabbatayra, Harayvet HaPnimi VaHanelam Shabbatayra, Shemaster Lihizkalas Barbizvan Hazeh, Aidei Torah Chasidus. So the Rebbe explains that when the Chazal uses this expression Torah Chadasha, a new type of Torah, or in the words of Rashi, Soi Tameh, the secret and its reason of the reasons of the Torah, it's referring to this level of Yechida Shabbat Torah, which is this inner level of Torah that's really hidden, that began to be revealed already at the time, but now through Torah Chassidus. Now, since we said the whole aspect of Mashiach is Yechida, leficha Torah Chassidus he Torah Mashiach. That is why the Torah of Chassidus is really the Torah of Mashiach. And therefore, the revelation of Chassidus in these later generations, we know, is a preparation and a taste of the coming of Mashiach. And therefore, the spreading of Chassidus outward really hastens the coming of Mashiach. And that is what we are going to focus on in this particular chapter. What exactly is Torah Chassidus, and how is the spreading of a Chassidus a way to hasten the coming of Mashiach? So Rivki, take over. Go ahead.
Mahi Torah Chassidus. Uvahaktim divrei Admor Harshab Nishmasevin she'amar nashim chayshim Chassidus he perish al Kabbalah. Zudi Tos Kabbalah he perish al Chassidus. So we'll start with the words of the Rebbe Rashab, and he said, people think that Chassidus is an explanation of Kabbalah, and that's a mistake. Kabbalah is an explanation of Chassidus. Kleimer, b'Torah Kabbalah yeshnei pirut rav shel seder shtalshlus ha'elamais ha'yonim. B'Torah Chassidus muvayim musagim ravim b'Torah Kabbalah u'mevarem oisam ber heitev b'tzura higyonis u'b'shita mesuderes. So Kabbalah has a great detail on the Seder Shtalshelus of the world, of the upper world. And Torah Chassidus brings concepts, many concepts from Kabbalah and explains them in a way that is logical and in a organized fashion. L'fichach yichol yoyis machshava shechassidus ein ela perish al Torah Kabbalah. And so one could think that Chassidus is only an explanation of Kabbalah. But in truth, it's the opposite. The Kabbalah is a parish of Chassidus. Ki Torah Chassidus hi olam chadash l'gamrei shel rayonos mishmoyos v'tzuras chashiva she'einenu b'nimtza b'shum makom k'elo b'sifrei Kabbalah. Because Torah Chassidus is a new world completely of ideas and meanings and different way of thinking that you won't find anywhere else, including the books of Kabbalah. Torah Chassidus mishtameshes ba'olam hamusagim u'b'sfas hamonachim shel Torah Kabbalah b'chtei levar etzrei neseh hamukim. But Torah Chassidus uses the concepts, the world of concepts, and the language that is already there in Torah Kabbalah in order to explain its ideas, its deep ideas. V'svados Yutas Kislev Toshen Chavav Yichad Hareb Dvarim B'Nosei HaMashmois HaMiyuchedes Shel Torah Chassidus V'Yachsa L'Shar Chalkei HaTorah V'Sicha Shehuga L'Achar Mikem V'Sparsama B'Shem Kutros Inyana Shel Torah Chassidus. So Yutas Kislev Toshen Chavav, by the Farbrengen, the Rebbe explained the special meaning of Torah Chassidus and its relationship to the other parts of Torah in a sicha that was afterward muga and publicized as Kuntrus Inyana Shel Torah Chassidus. That's on Maida'ani, right? V'ikar devarav she'arba ha'revadim sheb'Torah pshat remez dush v'soid mekavnim k'neged dalet oitzi Shem Havaya sheknendem arba oigamois atzilus bri yitzira asiya v'arba rivdi anefesh ruach neshama chaya. So the main point there is that the 4 levels of Torah, pshat remez dush and soid, they are
corresponding.
Excuse me?
Corresponding.
Oh, thank you. Corresponding to the 4 letters of Shem Havaya and the 4 worlds and the 4 levels of the neshama, nefesh ruach neshama chaya. The Torah Chassidus mekavenes kneged atzmusa yisparach deloy esramez b'shum ois b'shum koitz hu hakeser shel mayl mikol arba oilamis u'benem shadam hi b'chinas Yechida shebenefesh. And Torah Chassidus corresponds to the Atmos of Hashem Himself, that there's no letter and no kites, no end.
Not even the pintele part, not like yod, not even the little point of it.
The point. It is Keser, which is higher than the 4 worlds, and in the nefesh of the and in the nefesh of the person, it is the Yechida shebenefesh, which is higher than the 4. Ukedumas ikris liachas shel Torah Chassidus shar chalkei HaTorah. Maybe a Rebbe saminag le'mar moeda'ani b'chol boiker. Mevar oise ba'arba yifanim al pipshat remez drush v'hasoid. U'v'soid maybe it's a parish of Chassidus l'kach. Umar ha'ketzad hu shayach l'b'chinas Yechida. And as example of
Main example.
Relationship, the main example of the relationship with Torah Chassidus with the other parts of Torah. So the Rebbe brings the minhag of saying Moeda'ani every morning, and he explains it in 4 ways according to Pshat Remez Dush and Site. And at the end, he brings the parish of Chassidus in each of these 4 and shows how it's shayach to the aspect of Yechida. The Moeda'ani ain't shum shame mishmoisav shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Lefichach efshar loymar oisai Gam b'yadayim tmeyes kaidem hanatila b'bayta. So Moedani, there is no explicit name of Hashem, and therefore we can say it with tamei hands before washing our hands in the morning. The Torah success meve'eres es hamishma'is hapnimis b'shabazeh shemoedani hu ha'idov v'eskasha shel Yehudi l'atzmus yisparach shel ma'ila mikol Hashem es v'agdaris she'idor zu bo mitzad etzem nishmoseh shel Yehudi b'chinas Yechida hadvuka b'kadosh baruch hu b'eskasha t'midis she'af tuma eni yachol ladas ba. So Chassidus explains the inner meaning of this, that Moedani is the acceptance and the connection of a Yid to the Atzmus of Hashem, which is higher than any names and any limitations. And this acceptance is
more of acknowledgement.
acknowledgement. Thank you.
Acknowledgement.
Acknowledgement comes from the Etzem Neshama of a Yid, which is the Yechida, which is attached to Hashem in a constant attachment, and no Tuma could touch it. So from this example, we see how Chassidus, because it is the Yechida of the Torah, so it finds in every single inyan, even in such a pashut inyan like Moedani, seemingly pashut inyan like Moedani, it finds the Atmos of Hashem. It shows how the Atmos of Hashem and the Etzem and Neshama of a Yid are connected. ובדרך זו ממשיך הרבי באיס השיחה ומיינה שורה של רעיונות חסידיים שונים שלכאורה כל אחד מהם עומד בפני עצמם. הסהבוס הבריא בכל רגע, היחס למצווה קריאת זין של מעלה מהסוגה, שחיים אמיתיים אינם אלא חיים של תורה מצווה ועוד. ומראה כיצד כל רעיונות אלו קשורים ממשיכים זה את זה, וכולם כאחד מפתעים ומשקפים את ההסתכלות של היחידה שבנפש. Al mashmois habriya, mashmois hamitzvos, mashmois hachayim. And so the Rebbe continues in the same sicha, and he lists different Hasidic ideas that it seems that each of them are a separate idea. And these are the ideas. The fact that the world is created at every moment, the relationship between mitzvahs, the relationship to mitzvahs, that is Hashem's will, that is higher than our understanding, that real life is only a life of Torah mitzvahs, and more. And he shows how all these ideas are connected and are come after, follow one another, and they all express and show the Yechida Shebenefesh, the way Yechida Shebenefesh looks at the purpose of the creation and the purpose of mitzvahs and the purpose of life. The common Navi is Ikrei Hadvarim, Uvi'im Yersha, Navi Achar Hamelech, Mahamshich Ba'isei Kavel Kashas Hadvarim Layenis Chasidim Merkaziyim Neisafim, Shekulam Einam Ela Hishtakfus Shel Oisin Akuda Achas, V'Yechida. So we will now bring the main points of it, and if possible, Navai Achar Hamelech. We will continue after our Rebbe, meaning we will.
That's right.
Continue the ideas of our Melech to continue in the same path and to connect different ideas of Chassidus, different central ideas of Chassidus, and show how they're all exactly the same idea, the Yechida, expressing the Yechida. וגם להציג את עצם רעיונות חסידים בהשוואה למבואר בחלקים אחרים שבתורתנו, ובעיקר בדברי רמב"ם, שאף הוא העניק לעם ישראל תורה שלמה ושיטה סדורה אודות משמעותה של הבורא והיחס שלו לבריאה. משמעות הקשר בין האדם לקדוש ברוך הוא, משמעותה של התורה מצוותיה ומשמעותם של החיים. שיטה שעומדת בפני עצמה לכאורה שונה לגמרי מהשיטה החסידית, ועל ידי השוואה זו יסחדד יויסר החידוש המיוחד של תורת החסידות. And we will also present different ideas of Hasidus and compare them to that which is explained in other parts of the Torah, and mainly in the words of the Rambam, that he also gave Am Yisrael a full Torah and a organized shita about the meaning of Hashem and his relationship with the creation, and the meaning of the relationship of a person with Hashem, and the meaning of Torah and mitzvahs, and the meaning of life. And this shita could stand on its own, and it seems completely different from the shita of Hasidus. And through this comparison, we will be able to more sharply understand the chiddush, the special chiddush of Torah Hasidus. אך כפי שהוזכר לעיל כמה פעמים, תורתנו תורה אחת היא, ושיטת הרמב"ם ושיטת החסידות שניהם חלקים של עשת תורת אמס, ולפיכך אין לרצות הדברים כסייסים זה לזה, אלא כדברים שונים המשלימים זה את זה. But as we mentioned above many times, Torah is one, and the Shita of the Rambam and the Shita of Hasidus, they are both parts of the same Torah's emes, and therefore we cannot see them as contradicting one the other, but as two planes, or
they're like levels,
levels that complete one another. וכך גם בפרק זה נשתדל להראות כיצד הרעיונות החסידיים משתלבים עם דברי הרמב"ם, ועד שאפשר למצוא אותם בקיצור וברמז בדברי הרמב"ם עצמו, וכפי שרבי מרזייס בכמה קיימס בתרסה. And also in this parak, we will try to show how these ideas of Hasidus are included in the words of the Rambam, and we can even find them there in short and in hint in the words of the Rambam itself, as the Rebbe shows us in a few places in his Torah. Vayikar aleinu lirois ketzat kol rayonis elu miskashim lenakuda ha'ikris v'atachos iskal Yechida ha'kolos b'viyas HaMashiach kol kaman be'ezras Hashem. And the main thing, we will see how all these ideas are connected to the main nekuda and the whole purpose, which is the revelation of the general Yechida with the coming of Mashiach, and as further will be be'ezras Hashem.
Okay, so let's start that. So the Shitas HaRambam, Oidis HaBoyer v'Habriya. Kvish huzkar kvar le'il b'perek Aleph, HaRambam madgish ma'ayis ma'amadim shel ha'chachma v'ha'seichel b'chayei ha'adam b'chlal. So we mentioned this at the very beginning of our Sefer, in the first chapter, that the Rambam emphasizes the place of chachma in the life of a person, and especially in terms of Avodas Hashem. So that level of looking at everything from the point of our seichel and chakira, in a sense, philosophy. The Divya Rambam, and what did the Rambam say there? We again in our very first chapter, the ikar adam hu sichlai. The main thing of a person is his intellect. That's what makes us human and not like an animal, right? But Isaac muskelis b'chlal b'disel k'prat, and we use our intellect to do what? To delve into all sorts of intellectual ideas. And specifically in knowing Hashem, and by using our intellect, humans who use their brains, right, that is how they feel fulfilled. Well, the fichach as a pasuk nasa adam b'talmeinu kidmusenu who mafarish al sichlei shel adam by who mistamel malach melyanim. And therefore, on the words, let us make man b'talmeinu kidmusenu, the Rambam explains that is nasa adam b'talmeinu kidmusenu is referring to the intellect of human beings. And in that way, that we have an intellect and we can think and we can evaluate and we can ponder Hashem, that is how we are compared to the malachim, the angels. And therefore fitting in with that. So again, fitting in with that idea that the whole point of a human being is their intellect and they're supposed to use it to recognize Hashem. So the Rambam says when a person recognizes the greatness, so when he talks about humans are recognizing Hashem, he's speaking about this intellectual understanding that we can reach if we use our intellect to think. You're mute. You want to ask a question?
Thank you. Malachim have intellect? I thought we're daime laboire or.
Yeah, Dharma Bayer, but also the idea that Malachim understand Hashem, right? We talk about Strafim, Chayas, and Fani HaKodesh, and there are different levels. So the fact that we have a seichel that we can understand Hashem, and that's the Nasa Adam, because we know Rashi says Nasa Adam, Hashem was talking to Malachim, right? Nasa Adam, but Zamenikid Museinu. So in that way, the fact that we have seichel, we can understand Hashem. In that way, we're similar to the Malachim, because at some level they understand, they grasp HaKadosh Baruch. So when the Rambam therefore talks about recognizing Hashem, and of course, remember, that's why the Rambam says that ultimately it's in the neshama, not in the guf, because he says the body is always going to limit our understanding and our intellect, right? So recognizing Hashem, the Rambam on this level is talking about, well, that's what you get. You recognize Hashem by contemplating Hashem with your seichel. And the fact that the main point that is found in the seichel of every person, that's the seichel is obviously enclosed in a guf. And what's the main point for that seichel is the world that he sees. Therefore, how does a human being come to recognize the existence of a Kadosh Baruch Hu? He looks at the world. And by looking at the world, this brings him. Right? By using our seichel and looking at the world around us, we recognize that from our seichel that there must be a Matzur Rishon, a first entity that brought this world into creation. And like we know, we find that scientists who are honest and have a bit of humility, right, end up becoming creationists. Because if you look at the world and you really study this world, you have to come to the conclusion that there must be a creator who created all of this. Rambam, and this is how the Rambam describes it. He gives an example. Where do we see this? A very example of using our intellect to try to understand Hashem is Avram Avinu. How did he come to recognizing that there was a God in the world? Kevan Shidnigma, so when this great person, right, this stronghold, this powerhouse of Avram Avinu, when he was weaned, he started to think day and night. How is it that, that the spheres that go around the earth, the sun, they're revolving, and what, there's no one guiding it? Until he recognized, right, with his own seichel, the right path, which is what? Ben Arbaim Shana Hikar Avram Aspiring. He was actually 40 years old when he recognized his creation, according to the Rambam. So we look at the words of the Rambam. What is he emphasizing? That Avram Avinu reached this recognition of HaKadosh Baruch Hu purely from his own intellectual understanding. And therefore, by contemplating the existence of the world as he saw it and could see it, without any revelation from Hashem leading him on. And through that, through what Avram Avinu did, we know that Ma'aseh Avasim Labanim, therefore he gave us, the children of Avram, a path forward. So when a person will contemplate the deeds and the creations, the wondrous creations of Hashem, he will then see in the world that he looks at this wondrous chachma of Hashem that has no, you can't evaluate it, it has no end. Miyad hu ohev u'mishavech u'mafar therefore, and then he immediately will love and praise and consider it quite wonderful and desire to know Hashem himself. So what does this tell us? So what is the Rambam saying? That a person recognizes Hashem and the greatness of Hashem based on the quantity, the amount that he can observe in the existence of the world that we can actually see. So then what happens when a person reaches this intellectual recognition of Hashem, of Hashem's existence, then that arouses within him a love for Hashem. And what's the nature of this Avos Hashem that we get to by contemplating Hashem with our intellect. It's this desire to know Hashem. We only love Hashem with the knowledge of knowing Him. Right? In other words, a love of wanting to know more, to contemplate and to go deeper and deeper into understanding. And therefore, the Rambam concludes, because the understanding of a human being, if we want to contemplate Hashem, it's going to be limited because we are still in a body. That's why the whole life of a person, he goes through his life with this tremendous desire to finally reach the world of the neshamas in Olam Haba. Because only there will he be able to reach the true, complete understanding of the greatness of Hashem and be able to truly connect to Him. Now, just like the Rambam is therefore describing a person and saying the main point of a person is his intellect, so too the Rambam describes Hashem in terms of the tachlis, right? The ultimate chachma. Hu hamada, hu yodea, hu adea atzmai. Hashem is the knowledge; He's one who knows, and He is the intellect itself. The kevesh hakadosh baruch hu tachlis hachachma. Haragam utarasa umitzvaysav misyachzaram ketachlis hachachma. Now again, so if a person is mainly about his intellect, and Hashem is about the knowledge, the knower, and the intellect itself, then the Torah itself and the mitzvahs, the Rambam also refers to them in terms of chachma. That what? That the Torah itself, that the Torah itself is our chachma and our understanding for the nations. In other words, that is what makes us consider these great and smart people, is because of the Torah. And that's why he holds on to the shita, the view, that we're not saying that mitzvahs don't have a reason, that they're just simple ruts without reason, but every mitzvah does have a reason. It's just that we don't understand. And his Svarim, he tries to give us a logical explanation for the mitzvahs, and how all the mitzvahs do have a purpose in this world. Okay, so it's not that there's no reason, there are reasons for everything, and he gives us a logical way to understand how every single mitzvah brings some sort of benefit for us and benefit for the settlement of the world. And according to the Rambam, then any mitzvah where we cannot logically understand the reason for it, we can't assume that it doesn't have a reason. It's just that if we don't really get the reason for a mitzvah, it means that the reason is very, very deep, and we have to work much harder in order to grasp it and to understand it. Okay, so that is what we said, the shita of the Rambam, as we started earlier in the Sefer.
But
What?
How do we do it? But chukim are still chukim?
Yeah, well, according to the Rambam, there's a reason, just that we don't know it.
Even chukim.
There's no reason for
it.
Hashem didn't tell us the reason. But there is a reason. Hashem has a reason. It's just that our seichel can't understand it. So we weren't given a reason. Okay, so now let's compare that view of the Rambam with Shitas HaChasidus. Okay, go ahead. Rivki, you want to go ahead?
Maybe someone else wants to read. I'm fine. I can read. Okay. Shitas HaChasidus mol Shitas HaRambam. Uva hamaral v'hiksha al Rambam. איך אפשר להגדיר את הקדוש ברוך הוא כשכל וחוכמה עליונה, והרי הוא מהות פשוטה לא יוגדר במה. So the Maral comes and he has a question on the Rambam. How could you describe Hashem as seichel and higher chachma? Hashem is pashut mehus, who the essence. You can't give him any boundaries like that. Uvad marzakein v'yachlir b'neiim. וביר שאכן כדברי המהר"ל הקדוש ברוך הוא מהות פשוטה שלא יתוגדר בגדר. אך במה הדברים אמורים? כשמדובר על הקדוש ברוך הוא עצמאי כפי שהוא, אך צמצם הקדוש ברוך הוא ערך גדול והלבש עצמאי בספירס חוכמה וחסד וכולי שבהם אצילוס, ואז הוא מסגל כבעל חוכמה ובעל חסד וכולי, ואזי נכון לומר עליו הגדרת הרמב"ם כנ"ל שהוא עמד והוא יודע. So the Alter Rebbe comes and he makes a compromise between them, and he explains that it's true what the Maharal says, that Hashem is just essence and you cannot give him any limitations. But that's talking about, when you're talking about Hashem himself as he is. But Hashem made the tzimtzum, he limited his great light, and he enclosed himself in the spheres of Chachma and Chesed, etc., in the world of Atzilus, and there he is revealed as one who has Chachma and one who is Chesed, and so we could say, so then how the Rama describes Hashem is also true, that he is the Mada and the Yedea, he is the knowledge and the one who knows. שכשם שהקדוש ברוך הוא עצמאי הוא מהות פשוטה לא יוגדר במה, כך גם האדם שנברא בצלם אלוקים. The Alter Rebbe adds and explains more that as Hashem is mahus pshuta and without any limitations, so too the person who is created b'tzelem Elokim. כלומר שהקדוש רמב"ם עשה אדם כנפש שכלס, אינו מעצס מהוסה של אדם, כיוון שהשכל אינו אלא איך מכך הנפש, שהיא עצמה בלתי מוגדרת. So when the Rambam describes the person as being a nefesh siklis, so that is not the whole mahus of the person, because the seichel is only one of the kachas nefesh. The nefesh, which in itself is without limitations, without boundaries. כך עצם הנפש נלקחה מעצמוס יספרך ממש ומקו בנס כנגדוי ומסקשרס אימי. The same way the kaiches of the nefesh elikis come from the upper spheres and are corresponding to them, so the nefesh, the etzem nefesh, which is taken from the atmos of Hashem himself, and it's also corresponding to it and connected with it. על פי עקרונס אלו מבאר אדמו"ר הזקן משמעוס האמונה בהשם, היינו הנחה פשוטה בנפש של הכרה במציאות יספרך בלא יסברים, וככה הכרה של עצם הנפש בעצמוס יספרך שאינה זקוקה להסברים שכליים. And according to this foundation, principle. Yeah. According to this principle, the Alter Rebbe explains the meaning of Emunah in Hashem. This is the simple recognition of the nefesh that Hashem is, without any explanations and any proofs. This is the recognition of the etzem nefesh in the atmos of Hashem, and it doesn't need any intellectual explanations. ולכן הכרה זו ישנה גם אצל אנשים פשוטים שאינם שייכים להשגה השכלית, כי ההזכרה של עצם הנפש בעצמוס יספרך היא בכל ישראל ושווה. And so this recognition is, you can find by even the most simple person that cannot understand too much intellectually, because the connection of the etzem nefesh with the etzem of Hashem is by every single yid exactly the same. וכאלה ביר המושג אמונה בצורה זו איני קיום בדברי הרמב"ם או בספרים אחרים שקודם לתורת החסידות. גם לא בספרי הקבלה בהוגדר לראשונה בתורת החסידות לבדה. And it seems that this idea of explaining emuna in this way, you will not find in the words of the Rambam or in other svarim that were around before Teres HaChassidus, and also not according to Kabbalah. And it is described for the first time in Teres HaChassidus Levada, in Teres HaChassidus itself. ואומנם אדמו"ר זקן במאמרו מוציא לכך מקורות בתורת הקבלה, ומלבד זאת בדברי העץ חיים מועדס ניצוץ בוירם סלבשס בניצוץ נברא ואיסא ניצוץ נקרא יחידה, ומבאר שעשה יחידה היא עצם הנפש הבלתי מוגדר במסקשר עם השם יספרך בקשר של מיילה מהשכל, מהשכל, that. So even though the Alter Rebbe in his Maimarim, he does find a source in Kabbalah, and it's written in Eitz Chaim.
Not written. The Rambam dresses it. I mean, not the Alter Rebbe, right? The Alter Rebbe finds sources for this in the words of Kabbalah, and he encloses his words from the words of Eitz Chaim, right? So he
says here, where it says in Eitz Chaim about a spark of Hashem that is enclosed in the spark of the creation, and that spark is called Yechida. And he explains how this Yechida is Etzem HaNefesh, which is without any limitations, and it is connected to Hashem in a connection that is higher than Seichel. שהמושג יחידה אכן מופיע בעץ חיים, אך המשמעות הניתנת לו על ידי אדמו"ר הזקן היא מקודשת ומחודשת לגמרי ומיוחדת לתורת החסידות. So even though the idea of Yechida does appear in Eitz Chaim, but the meaning that's given by the Alter Rebbe is original and new completely and special to Torah Chassidus. גם כאשר אדמו"ר הזקן מדבר בדומה לרמב"ם על הזבנינוס סיכוס בקדוש השם, ושם דגש מיוחד על הזבנינוס בעצמוס יספרך של מעלה מהסודות השכל. And when the Alter Rebbe talks about, as similar to the Rambam, about meditating with your mind on the Gdus Hashem, so he stresses the meditating about Atzmus Yisparach, which is higher than the understanding of our intellect. So even though we cannot, no mind can grasp Hashem, but the Alter Rebbe says that on this idea, that's what we should meditate on, and we should understand the great difference and in how we're completely not in the same wavelength. We can't even, it's not even compared to us. ומייסב ומברר שהזבנינוס בקדוש השם הנתפסת בשכלנו נוידע אלבה מוגבלת להשם, ואילו מהזבנינוס שלייס מחשבה דבייסה בי נולדת אלבה בלתי מוגבלת. And the Rebbe adds and explains that when you meditate on Gdus Hashem as you can understand it in your seichel, so the love that is born from it will be limited. But if you delve on the idea of that which we cannot grasp, so then the love that will be born from it will be a love that is not limited. בהמשך לזה הרמב"ם שמדגיש את הסוג הסיכוס בקדוש השם, מתארס אויב השם כמי שמשתוקק וקמה להגיע לחיי העולם הבא, שם יגיע לסוג האמיתיס. And in continuation, the Rambam, who stresses the understanding with our seichel of Hashem's greatness, so he explains that the person who loves Hashem is like desiring one who's desiring for Olam Haba, because there he will reach the true understanding of Hashem. אך אדמו"ר זקן מבאר שאי אפשר לשום נברא אפילו מעליונים להשיג כי אם איזה האורה מאור השם. וכפי שאפשר לדייק מדברי חז"ל שתיארו את העונג של הנשמות כנהנה מזיו השכינה, זיו האורה בלבד. But the Alter Rebbe explains that it's impossible for any creation, even from the creations in the upper worlds, to be able to understand Hashem. Only a light from the light of Hashem, and as we can see from what the Chazal say, that as they explain, the pleasure of the neshamas In Olam Haba, as Nene Miziv HaShechina, they will have pleasure from the light of the Shechina, from the ray of the Shechina. Only the ray and the light itself. V'chein oiv Hashem hachasidi eini me'unyan klal b'chayei olam haba, ela ach v'rak l'dvoich bar yisparech habilti musad levado. And therefore, the Hasidic lover of Hashem is not at all interested in life in the world to come. He's only interested to attach himself to Hashem, which is completely above understanding. Sounds better in Yiddish. So, as the known statement of the Alter Rebbe, I don't want anything. I don't want your Gan Eden. I don't want your Olam Haba. I want only you and you yourself. Lochein ein sipur pomim mitzatei dadmar zakim b'sfarav Torah or v'lekutei Torah. Asher shloimar shepasuk ze yechol lihashev ke'echad ha'mishpatim ha'markozim b'yoser b'sfarim hanal. Es ha'pasuk mili b'shamayim v'imcha lo chapatzti ba'aretz. U'mefaresh sheshamayim va'aretz hainu Gan Eden ha'tachton va'elyon. And therefore, in a numerous amount of times, the Alter Rebbe quotes in his Svarim Torah and Lekutei Torah, and so many times that we can even say that this sentence is one of the central sentences in these Svarim. The pasuk Mili b'shamayim v'im chalei chafatzti ba'aretz, and the Alter Rebbe explains it that Shemayim and Aretz is Gan Eden HaTachton and Gan Eden HaElyon, and a true lover of Hashem calls out that he's not interested not in Gan Eden HaTachton and in Gan Eden HaElyon. He's interested only in Hashem himself. Mili b'shamayim v'im chalei chafatzti ba'aretz. Meaning I have nothing that I need in the heavens, and I don't need anything on the earth. I need only you. The Kevan Saga Sichlas Mugbelis Mailida Ava Mugbelis Lashem Lakach Gam Avedus Hashem Sheberambam Kimeduda Umugbelis. So because the intellectual understanding is limited and it gives birth to limited love, so therefore, the Avodas Hashem of the Rambam is can be measured and is limited. Lo'ilam lo yaktish adam lo yecharim kol nechasav va'oisekach ever al das hakasav enzu chasidus elashtus. So the Rambam says that a person should not give away all his possessions, and one who does do this goes against the Torah, and this is not chasidus at all, meaning not with Nimashur Sadin, but it's a shtus. I guess that refers to tzedakah, right? You shouldn't give everything away. But the Alter Rebbe was talking about Hashem as he is unlimited. Bilti mugbal. Doirish me'adam la'avaydus Hashem b'tzura bilti mugbalas v'tevei mimenu b'mitzvot tzedakah kol asher li'ish yitem ba'ad nafshay. Al derech zu b'shar inyanim. Since the Alter Rebbe is teaching us about Hashem as he is unlimited, so he demands from a person to serve Hashem in a way that is unlimited, and he demands from him tzedakah, to give tzedakah in that way, because a person will give everything away for his life, and so too in many other ideas. This is so interesting. And so in our relationship to Hashem, so it is in our relationship to Hashem's mitzvahs. Rambam kinal mesachais laHashem ketachlis hachachma. U'tichach mesachais l'mitzvahs v'isparach kechachamasam u'binaschad. Shelchein kasav shelachol hamitzvahs yesh netam v'siba. So the Rambam, as above, relates to Hashem as the ultimate chachma, and therefore he relates to the mitzvahs of Hashem as Hashem's chachma and Hashem's understanding. And therefore he writes that all the mitzvahs have a reason and a purpose. But Torah Chassidus, which talks about the atzmos, which is higher than chachma, So it relates to the mitzvahs as a Ratzon, the will of Hashem that is higher than Seichel. Lashon Admar Zakir. Mitzvahs HaMelech she'ei levake shum tam klal, ki marcha shemitzad etzem reimem hu levadei v'chulei. And as the Alter Rebbe writes, that the mitzvahs of the king, we do not need to ask for any explanation, any reason, because it is from the essence of Hashem that is higher than everything. ועל דרך זה דברי אדמו"ר הרש"ב בהמשך תרס"ו, שאין זה עיקר המצווה לעשותה בטעם וכוונה בסוד הרצון העליון שבה, כמו במצוות תפילין בסוד בטעם דמקיפים דדל מויכין וציציס ולמד בייז נסיבס חכמה וכולי, רק בלי כוונה וטעם כלל, אלא רק מצד עצם פנימיוס רצון העליון, שכך עולה ברצונים משום זה הוא עושה. יש לחייס גדול בעשיית המצווה בזה שמקיים רצון העליון. ועל ידי עשיית המצווה באופן כזה, וקבלת עול מלכות שמיים, ממשיכים בחינס הרצון העצמי. So as the Rebbe Rashad explains in the Hemshech Tafresh Samachvav, that the main idea of the mitzvah is that the main idea of the mitzvah is not to do it according to its reason and its inner purpose of the secret of what Hashem wants from it. Like in the mitzvah of tefillin, the secret and the reason of the makifin of the daled moichin, and in tzitzis the 32 paths of chachma, etc. We should do it without any reason, without any
without kavanah. Like you don't have the kavanah of intention. Like we shouldn't be thinking like that kavanah. We're doing the mitzvah with this kavanah of the inner side of what Hashem wants from us. Rather, we should just do it because that's what Hashem wants us to do. Finished, just like that.
Because that's the inner ratzon of Hashem, and that's what came up in Hashem's will, and because of that we do it. And he has a big chayes in doing the mitzvah because he is fulfilling the ratzon of Hashem, and through doing a mitzvah in this way, with Kabbalah Al Malchus Shemayim, so there he draws down the Ratzon Atzmi of Hashem.
That's right. So then, I think we have a few more minutes. Ein ad mavado aper shachasidi. So let's take this one step further. We just have one little bit more here. So, minyan inyan ba'iseinyan. Kasaba Rambam mitchlis sifra. Again, the Rambam writes at the beginning of the sefer. Yisayid ha yisayid is va'amna chachmas leida sheisha matzah rishon boom amti klonim. So that's how the Rambam starts up Mishnah Torah. Foundation of everything and the pillar of chachma is to know that there is a creator. That Hashem created the world and He brought everything into existence. Shemisikin l'shan muban shakadosh baruch hu mitzias v'chol sha'ar nevram avhei mitzias kiyamos. From the words lashon, what comes out that Kadosh Baruch Hu is an entity, and all the rest of creation are also entities. It just comes out that what are they saying? Okay, so Hashem is a Metzias, so too everything else is a Metzias, but what? The Hashem's Metzias is more of a Metzias than everything else. So like Hashem is an entity. We're an entity, it's just Hashem is more of an entity than we are. Well, Rambam is the words of the Rambam, right? Shakadosh Baruch Hu Motzui Emes. That's how he says it. He's in Motzui Rishon. He's Motzui Emes. He's the real existence. Because the existence of Hashem, His entity doesn't depend on anything else. But Raihu Mechuyev HaMetzias, so He is like He must exist. Klaimar Metzios Shechayeves LeHimatzei V'lo Yitzur Acheres. He is a Metzias that has to exist, and nothing else. He doesn't need anything else, right? He himself is the only really true existence. And everything else it's possible. It could exist, but it doesn't have to. Because everything else just depends on the existence of Hashem. And it's also possible Hashem would never have created them. So Hashem is the true entity and the only one that has to exist. As a pasuk, Hashem hu Elokim ein od mavadai. That's how the Rambam actually explains this pasuk. Hashem is Elokim ein od mavadai. Now what? Shakavani he ein od matzoi mavadai k'maisai. Ein od mavadai. The Rambam says just means there's no entity aside from Hashem that is like Hashem. Klaimar she'ein aper shakadosh baruch hu levadai k'pshutai. The Rambam is not saying that Hashem is the only existence. Wait, it says. Because he's saying, no, there are other existence. But everything else is not a true existence like the existence of Hashem. Therefore, the words Ein Od Muvadai, according to the Rambam, is Ein Od K'maisai. There's nothing existing like Hashem. But we know, Achad Mor Zakim Mefarish, it's a pasuk, Ein Od Muvadai, but Eifin Amuk Yosef. We know the Alter Rebbe explains this pasuk very much deeper. Not just there's nothing like Hashem, but simply there is nothing else aside from Hashem. That Hashem himself is like it was before he ever created the world, where Hashem was alone. And even though after creation of the world, we see the world and it seems to be in existence outside of Hashem, the Alter Rebbe says, nevertheless, of course, Hashem is still alone. Because everything else that is existing doesn't take up any space. It's considered nothing to Hashem. Of course, we know that in the Torah Chassidus at length, with many explanations and many mishalim, we understand why the world and everything that's in it is considered to be like nothing in comparison to Kadosh Baruch Hu. At the root of all of this, we brought what the Alter Rebbe should differ Rambam b'Hilchos Yechida Torah misyachsim HaKadosh Baruch Hu k'fi shul mislapish b'sfiras ha'atzilus. So based on what we said before, what the Alter Rebbe writes, the words of the Rambam and the Yechida Yechida Torah, he's referring a relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as Hashem is already dressed in the spheres of Atzilus. Now, when you talk about Atzilus, you're already in Seder Shtalshlus, so you're talking about Atzilus, an entity. As the Rambam says, he was the first entity. Because if you're talking about the spheres and Seder Shtalshlus, then the worlds, even in the spheres of Atzilus, the worlds are considered to be an entity, an important entity, right? Atzilus is the first beginning of creation. Therefore, if you're talking about Kadosh Baruch Hu within Seder Shtalshlus, then you're right. Ein Od Muvada can be explained that there's none like Hashem. When we talk about the essence of Hashem above Seder Shtalshlus, it's called Ayin, right? Is Ayin, nothing, because it's above anything that's created. Right, compared to this world and everything in it, it's like nothing. And therefore, at that level of Kether, when we talk about the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu before Seder Shtalshlus, then you would say, Hashem is alone as he was before he ever created the world. And therefore, in Chassidus, we find Kether, that's the Yechida Shel Olam. Because at that level, Hashem is alone, right? He is one and only. And now, since humans, we are created in the image of Hashem, and all the details of all our kaichas, of all our powers are created in the image of Hashem in all of its levels, and corresponding to all of those upper supernal kaichas. Therefore, what is the nature of a person? We feel ourselves as entities. We don't feel ourselves as nothing. We know we feel like we exist. So to our seichel, our intellect, that's connected, of course, to the spheres of Chabad already, and connected to them. Therefore, through our intellect, we feel ourselves very much as an entity. Therefore, if we're going to go like based on the Rambam, only according to our seichel, so if we're only going to go by what we can fully understand, then even the greatest seichel is not going to be able to come to that understanding that this world and everything in it is considered nothing and is real nothing. It's only because of our Yechida, That's again corresponds to the Yechida of Hashem himself, who are Keser Sheme'al Kol spheres. That is the level of a Keser above all the spheres, above Seder Shtashlos. He b'chinas ayin. There, it's at the level of ayin. Like there's nothing else. And from that level, that's where a Jew comes to the recognition that he himself and the entire world is not considered anything important. It's not an important existence. Hashem is like simply the only one, and he literally is alone. It's Hashem. Everything is a Kadosh Baruch Hu and nothing else. But we can only come to that understanding again from the level of Yechida, not from the level of our seichel.
So we did now 1, 2, or 3 ideas. I mean, we did our relationship with Hashem, our relationship to the mitzvahs, and this is our relationship to the world.
No, this is still our relationship to Hashem in terms of the seichel. And well, in a way, we're touching on the relationship with the world as well, really, right? Saying that the world, again, what is this world? So some understanding of our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, recognizing how we're connected to Hashem, therefore our mitzvahs are one, and therefore, yes, this part is the world itself, that there's nothing else aside from Hashem, but we can only come to that understanding from that level of Yechida. And next year, Mitzvah Hashem, I mean, Mashiach should teach it to us himself. We'll talk about bittul and how that comes into it, right? That relationship with our.
Okay, thank you. Have a good week.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks. Have a Chag Kosher v'Sameach. Kol tov.
Yeah, thank you so much.